Do you know the difference between the treaty and Te Tiriti? For a long time I didn't.
But you might have heard that there's a second document, and they also recognised that Māori had that tino rangatiratanga that they'd always had. And all of that was written in Te Reo Māori into Te Tiriti o Waitangi.
So today we sat down and had a really powerful conversation with someone who's leading the charge legally.
Māori have lost nearly all their land through breaches of not just actually Te Tiriti, but the treaty too.
But also just trying to educate through really simple books. My type of books, about 30 pages. That's my type of book. Simple layman's terms so we can all have a real basic understanding. And that's what it's about. Understanding brings empathy, and then if you want to know more, you can.
We're still feeling the effects of that today. There are people today who are still poor, who are still suffering, who are homeless, who once owned all the land in Aotearoa.
We all should know this, how our country was formed, what we were not taught at school. So whether you're Māori, Pākehā, Polynesian, Chinese, Indian, everyone here should have this basic understanding of how our country was founded. The real version. So don't forget, this conversation must be shared far and wide. Like, comment, subscribe and share. Roimata Smail, enjoy. Unfiltered is produced by the team at Fanaticals, and we are part of the Acast network. Before the episode starts, I just ask for one favour, one thing only of you. If you're watching, 80% of people watching are not subscribed. So if I can ask for one thing, please hit the subscribe button. It enables us to keep growing and to keep showing these stories, to keep showing people that no matter where you start in life and what you're going through, it's possible. Thanks, team. Enjoy. Roimata, thank you so much for joining me. How are you, sis?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, all good. Just on being a lawyer, I don't see many, and I think a lot of the people where I come from, I come from a gang background, so we saw lawyers when we were in trouble. But it's inspiring to see someone doing well that looks like me. Obviously, Māori lawyer focusing on the Te Tiriti in layman's terms so we can all understand.
Yeah.
Because that's the key, right? Understanding it.
Yeah. So I call my book Understanding Te Tiriti because I think it's not just for academics and lawyers like me, but I didn't learn anything until I became a lawyer specialising in the area.
Yeah.
So I've got empathy for myself 20 years ago and everyone else who doesn't know the basics, and I want to try and make it easy for people who want to learn.
So why did you start writing the books?
Yeah, I had always felt that people should know the facts, should have access to the facts, and I felt that a lot of things were said about the cases that we would win that just weren't true. But I had a health issue that sort of meant that I just felt like if I don't do this now, I might not get the chance. And I had a lump in my face, and I went to the doctor, and they did a biopsy, they did a test, and it was actually, the lump on my face was fine, but they found a couple of lumps in my thyroid, and it was thyroid cancer, which was a big shock. And so I had to kind of get through that, had my thyroid removed, and it's all good now, and it was very early, but yeah, I hadn't had a serious health scare like that before, and it really shocked me, and I thought, I think I've been working too hard as a lawyer. I need to change things, and this is the time. I need to try and, I really need to commit to sharing what I've learned as a lawyer.
Yeah. And
I just had this idea that it wasn't as complex as everyone said. I felt like I could write it in a really, really small book, and maybe it would help some people. But at least I'd know that, not being dramatic, but everything I learnt wouldn't just go with me.
Yeah. That
I would share it. And that was really what pushed me over the edge to write the book.
That's an awesome purpose. And the Hauora book, so just briefly, what's the Hauora or the health book? What is that?
So the first book was Understanding Te Tiriti, and then I had learnt so much, and we had a huge response to that book. So it was a bestseller. Last Waitangi Day, it was the best-selling book in Aotearoa. And I realised that people really, really want to learn, and I had learnt about the health system. because I had been involved in that case that led to Te Aka Whaiora, and also, I guess, reflecting on my own health scare, that really prompted me to write this book about the health system. It's kind of along the lines of what you mentioned, that people think that Māori have worse health statistics because we make bad choices. And I felt like that's not accurate. It doesn't match any of the research. It doesn't match anything anywhere that I'd learnt.
What does the research say?
That the book focuses on Te Whare Tapawha.
Yes.
That is about a house sitting on the foundation of your land. If you lose your land, you're homeless, you lose your connection, it's hugely traumatizing over many generations, and it's very bad for your health to be poor, to be isolated, to have nowhere to grow food to sustain yourself.
That's so true. That understanding brings empathy in everything. You know, because I talk to a lot of corporates and stuff, and I really try to give them a true understanding about what it's like for people like me, born into struggle, no choice, you know, and how hard it is to get out. It's possible to get out, but we need the right support. So once they understand that, then they have some empathy around it.
That's right. Where I guess I fit into that story is trying to give the background information. So if you understand that Māori lost millions and millions of acres, like 97% of our land, we lost, none of it fairly.
Let's take it back. Let's go right back to the beginning. How did this start?
Sure. I will go right back to the beginning. And I always start my talks by saying Māori discovered Aotearoa and Moriori discovered Rekohu Chatham Islands. And you might not have heard that taught when you were at school, that Māori discovered Aotearoa and they owned all the land. You might not have heard that either. Māori owned all the land, and they also had complete authority over their own lives, tinoranga tiratanga. And I always say that basically that's the longest period in the history of Aotearoa. Then other people started to arrive from overseas. Queen Victoria wanted the sole right to buy land in Aotearoa, and there were some British who were misbehaving, who were already here. So her representatives went to chiefs and said, we'll keep control of our people. We'll govern our British people in Aotearoa. Will you give us the sole right to buy land, so you're only going to sell to Britain? And we'll also offer you our protection, the protection of the Queen. And they recognised that Māori owned all the land. Of course they did, or else they wouldn't be able to buy it from them. And they also recognised that Māori had that tinoranga tiratanga that they'd always had. And all of that was written in Te Reo Māori into Te Tiriti o Waitangi. But you might have heard that there's a second document. In the Treaty of Waitangi, it was written in English that she'd have sovereignty, so that she could make laws over everyone in Aotearoa, including Māori, and that hadn't been discussed and that hadn't been agreed. And from there, we've had lots of problems.
Yeah. So that was really the start of the problems right there.
Yeah. The way that it goes along, I think the easiest way to remember it is in terms of laws and land. So the Crown started making laws. It felt that it was sovereign, it could make laws over everyone. And really we've had, to this day, a system of laws that Māori haven't had a choice in, haven't been part of developing those, and there's been lots of laws that have hurt Māori.
Yeah.
At the same time, Māori were being stripped of their land. So I think a lot of people think that Māori chose to sell their land. You know, why are you complaining about it now? You got paid. You can't take it back. Actually, all of the land that Māori lost was unfairly lost. Even when there was a sale transaction, they were paid 50 times less than what the Crown sold it for. And many times there were dodgy deals. Often Māori didn't understand that what selling land meant. They thought they were just agreeing basically for people from Britain to come and live with them. And when they didn't want to sell, the Crown made laws just confiscating it, declaring war on them. So I think a lot of people don't know those basics of our history. But if you can understand that Māori lost nearly all their land, we're still feeling the effects of that today. There are people today who are still poor, who are still suffering, who are homeless, who once owned all the land in Aotearoa.
So what do you say to people who just say, well, stop blaming it. Stop blaming that. Like, get over it. But I mean, when so much of our struggle started there, and a lot of our whānau just have never recovered.
I wouldn't say so much of our struggle started there. It all started there.
Yeah.
If you're homeless, you have to find a new life. You have laws where the police can lock up your boys, where oranga tamariki can take your children into care where more often than not they're abused. I mean, that has a real effect on people. That has caused the struggle, and an individual can't overcome all of that very easily. So we have to accept that these things have happened so that we can look at people who are struggling today, or look at the way we want to do things in the future and make decisions that are actually going to work.
How is this current government, what have they done to try and rip all the work that's been done away?
The way I look at it is, well, governments come and go.
Yeah.
And we've always had some governments who've sort of known maybe a bit more about our past and have tried to do some more. Māori have pushed for that. So over the past 50 years with the Land March, the establishment of the Waitangi Tribunal, we've had lots of cases, we've had treaty settlements that have returned a little bit of land. We have made some progress. In the past couple of years, we've seen a walking back of that process, a bit of a backlash, so serious that the United Nations expressed grave concern about racial discrimination against Māori in December. But governments come and go, and they all sit on a foundation of laws that Māori didn't get to choose, and Māori land that's funded New Zealand. The loss of that land has really hurt Māori. So Māori have survived all of that. I think we're resilient, and there will be steps in the future to continue to right those wrongs. But at the moment, yeah, I would say we're having a bit of a hard time.
Yeah. I remember sitting at a board meeting, and the iwi that I was with talking about buying back land, Crown land, and we're getting it, it was like we're getting it for a good deal. And I always found that funny. I said, but this land was taken, but they're selling it back to us at a good deal. It's crazy, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good for people to learn about the treaty settlement process.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a misconception that Māori have got so much in the treaty settlement, so much money, so much land, but it's actually tiny. So you've obviously seen that. So Margaret Mutu's research suggests that Māori have on average got less than 1% of their land back through treaty settlements. The amount of money that Māori get in a treaty settlement is tiny compared to what was lost and compared just to what the government spends every year. It's really, really tiny. So it's always just a starting point. And there's lots of things about the process that are quite hard and unfair.
Yeah.
If you want to get a treaty settlement from the Crown, you have to buy your own land back.
Yeah. It's like, it always done my head, and I was going, how does this work?
Yeah, so it's good that you're talking about it, because I think that the treaty settlements have been a great start, but that's only because the iwi have made them a great start. So I'm from Tainui and Maniapoto. Maniapoto, we just got our settlement.
Yes.
Tainui, we got it when I was finishing high school. So that meant that Tainui could support me towards my uni fees to go to law school.
Yeah.
And that was great. And Tainui has built up 170 million, which maybe sounds like a lot, but compared to what the government spends each year is a tiny, tiny amount. But they've turned that apparently into about 2 billion. So it's not because of a handout that Tainui have got a base now. They've worked hard to turn nothing into something.
Yeah. Yeah, Maniapoto's are doing some great stuff too.
Yeah.
It's been amazing to sit around that table and learn and see what they're doing. It's amazing with the investments and, trying to make the future, trying to make it grow for future generations.
Totally. It's amazing.
So so back to the treaty. So the English version, that's the treaty.
Yep.
And then you got the Te Tiriti. That's the Māori version.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people say it, so that it's easier to know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. I always just knew the treaty. But they're two different documents, are they?
They're two different documents because they say different things. Yeah. So Te Tiriti is the treaty in Māori, but it's easier to remember it with the name Te Tiriti, so that you know that you're talking about the Māori document, and that's the document that they discussed and agreed.
Yeah. And how does it differ?
The main point of difference is that Te Tiriti says Māori will keep their tino rangatiratanga, keep their absolute authority that they've always had, and the treaty says the Queen will be sovereign. She can make laws over everyone. And that's sort of what our laws have gone with.
Yeah.
They both have something in Article 2 that's the same, which both of them said Māori would keep their land. Which hasn't happened, as I said before. Māori have lost nearly all their land through breaches of not just actually Te Tiriti, but the treaty too.
So, but this doesn't seem right.
No.
So... So how can we make these? Is there any way that we can go back to the way it was supposed to be?
I think I have a lot of hope for the possibility of rebalancing.
Yeah.
I think that people, New Zealanders, need to understand that there's been some stuff in the past and some stuff now that's not right, so that they can understand that we need a bit of rebalancing. But I think it's totally possible. For example, there've been some steps, say, for example, in relation to the environment. So sometimes Māori are consulted on what's going to be happening in a resource consent. So that's sort of a baby step towards really what was contemplated was making decisions together.
Yeah.
So the tangata whenua who've looked after that land for hundreds of years should be an equal decision maker with the Crown, who represents everyone else, about what's good for the environment in their rohe, in their area. So there's signs everywhere that you can do it. We just need to be a bit brave and accept that tangata whenua want what's best for Aotearoa too.
Yeah. So is that when they talk about co-governance?
Totally, yeah. So an interesting point in treaty settlements is only less than 1% of the land that was lost has come back through treaty settlements. Actually, the Crown owns huge amounts of land still in Aotearoa, 40% of all the land. And nearly all of that is conservation land. And generally in treaty settlements, the Crown has refused to give back conservation land, saying that's for everyone to enjoy. And often what the Crown does instead is says we'll offer co-governance over that land. So the tangata whenua don't own it legally, but we'll make decisions together. So that's one example of where co-governance ideas have sort of come from.
Do you think it's ever possible that New Zealand can be co-governed?
Totally. I mean, that was the vision.
Yeah.
All it takes is bit of bravery and treating each other as equal partners. Here's another example. You know that whenever there's, whenever the environment needs protecting, whenever there is a natural disaster, Māori just step up and help and do what needs to be done, open the marae, take people in. They don't ask for permission from anyone. They just do it because they know that that's their role as tangata whenua. So it's just sort of maybe everyone else just being a bit braver to say, well, we see Māori do this anyway. Let's not be frightened of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's already examples of it, so why are you afraid of it, right?
Yeah. Are you afraid of it because we haven't been taught about our history? I didn't learn anything really about our history when I was at school. I had a friend, my best friend at high school, Kimiora. She did 1 year of New Zealand history, and that was just because her history teacher, he was learning it himself. He thought it was important for the students to learn it.
Yeah.
And he was, I think, about 6 weeks ahead of whatever he was teaching them. So there's, and they were maybe 30 kids out of our whole school who learnt our history, and she's been someone who's sort of helped me get up to speed as I've been working as a lawyer and as I wrote my books too. So yeah, most of us don't know it. We learnt something really, really different.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit jarring, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea. I'm 37. I think as I get older, I sort of stop worrying about my age. But I'm 37. No, I'm 47. Just cut 10 years off me. I know I look 37.
I didn't doubt it.
But, shit. Man, I'm 47. And back in school, I learned nothing about it. I always thought Captain Cook was a good guy. Wasn't until later on in my life. Let's go far out. It's there's some really bad stuff that happened to us.
Yeah, though I'm 46, so I learnt the same stuff as you probably. Yeah, and just sort of, I think because we were at school, I would have been I think I was standard 4 and you would have been Form 1 when we had the big 1990 celebrations. And I think we learned there was a bit of a focus on the Treaty of Waitangi then.
Yeah.
And I got the impression that it was like a really wonderful, lovely day. And I never understood why there were protesters on Waitangi Day.
Yeah.
And I guess it was a lovely agreement. What they were protesting about was, afterwards, when the Crown said, "Oh, well, we're going to follow this English document that you didn't agree to, and you're going to lose your land, and we're going to just control the whole country."
What's your thought on the last Waitangi Day with there's a lot of protesting, what was your thoughts on how everything transpired?
I mean, there's a lot of hurt, a lot of people trying to make things better, and it's a lot of pressure I feel on the day to try and cut through and see if we can, educate people and change attitudes. So, I mean, I think it's understandable that that tensions are high every year on Waitangi Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to continue until we can, work together a bit better.
What did you think of the Treaty Principles Act when that came out?
The Treaty Principles Bill. Yeah. I thought, what an amazing show from the people of Aotearoa to march, to make submissions and say, no, this is wrong. You can't rewrite the agreement that founded the country that we have today, that has Māori people and has everyone else too. I thought it was just so beautiful that so many people went out on the streets, stood up peacefully and said, this is wrong. And also that so many people braved the admin of making a submission to the select committee. So that is the most submissions by far on any bill ever in New Zealand. And schools, grandmas, whānau, they went through the process, which can be a bit scary if you're not a lawyer or someone who deals with that all the time. And they exercised their democratic right to say this bill is wrong. I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, the response was, I don't even think they were expecting that response. And we were blocking motorways and stuff like that. We were part of that. And then going down to Wellington and being a part of that was just amazing. It was we drove, I sort of decided last minute to drive.
Yeah.
And we just drove down so we could experience it. It was special.
Yeah.
Special to be a part of.
And didn't it make you feel like what I was saying, hopeful for the future that I don't know, most of us want to cooperate?
Yeah, it was cool for me to see people of all nationalities there supporting it, not just Māori.
Yeah.
There's everyone there. So I was there and they gave me one of the megaphones. It's funny, I got all these megaphones that I've been left with after. So it's cool now. Like when we go to our events at BBM, I've got megaphones, I've got speakers that I've been left with. So
You're probably supposed to give those back.
yeah. Well, they can't find me at the end. So but it was cool to be a part of those things. But that's what I noticed the last thing, all the different people. And I was on there with the megaphone, just telling everyone there not to forget everything that they've done and they're not doing, because this was last year, and this election year, they'll all be back in our communities and our food banks promising us this and that, but just don't forget, you know.
Yeah, it's been hard times for the past few years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I just try and remind myself that the people that I meet, like I go do talks in libraries and museums, and the people who email me, they want to get on. Yeah. They want to learn about Te Tiriti, and they want it to be honoured. And there's the people who are in Parliament and the people, everyday Kiwis. The ones that I meet, I don't know, they make me feel really, really hopeful. And I have to, if I'm going to have empathy for myself and for others who didn't learn the basics, then politicians are just people too. Yeah. And probably most of them are sort of our age-ish. And there's not as if there's a course that they have to do on Te Tiriti before they start writing laws or going on TV talking about it. And yet we sort of expect them to speak confidently. Yeah. But maybe, they don't actually know everything. And it's important that we keep, speaking up for what is right and getting ourselves educated. It matters.
Yeah, it's just even if there was a course, I reckon that some of these guys would say. I was at outside NZME last week at a cafe. A guy came in on his phone, and I had my head down, eating my cheese scone and a couple of espressos with breakfast of champions. Lovely. But I had my head down on my phone, and then I just hear this guy saying, I've got to go to this course, this fucking Te Reo stuff. And I was shocked. What the fuck? That's just the attitude of some people, right? And I think it's the attitude of a lot of these, the real estate agent that was going on, about having to learn this Te Reo, and I just think people have got to get over that. Yeah,
but I suppose I sort of look at things as trying to be an educator. Yeah. And if somebody doesn't want to learn, that is their journey and their loss. Yeah. What I'm seeing is that there is lots of people who do want to learn, who are open to it. And I guess what I think is important is just trying to build up the base foundation of knowledge for the people who are open to it. So I think the base level of knowledge for, say, what we learnt at school was kind of like, James Cook discovered New Zealand. There was no history here before that. Yeah. Everything's happy. Waitangi Day is a happy celebration, and nothing bad has ever happened. So I've learnt that that's not quite accurate. So all I'm just trying to, I think what is important is to try and get just that base knowledge correct. Yep. So that we're learning a more real story of our country. There'll be some people who will really, really struggle with that, like the person that you overheard. And, maybe it's going to take something in their life that changes their attitude. Like they have a Māori grandchild or something like that. Yeah. But there's a whole bunch of people who've just been taught the wrong information that we can help them and give them the correct story of our country.
So just how you explained the base level what we were taught.
Yeah.
What would be the ideal, what's the base level, just quickly, of what really happened?
Okay. So I would say, again, Māori discovered Aotearoa, Moriori discovered the Kohu Chatham Islands.
That's one thing they always say. We weren't first here, the Morioris were.
Yeah, so
So that's education.
Yeah. That they owned all the land.
Yep.
And they had complete authority over their lives. That's most of the history of Aotearoa. They made an agreement with Britain in Te Tiriti o Waitangi that agreement has been broken, meaning that the Crown controls all of the laws over Māori, and that Māori have lost nearly all of their land.
Yeah.
Is that short enough?
Yes.
Okay.
That's perfect. So now, it's a real good way of explaining it. So people can just grab a hold of that, and then they can go and find more info out for it.
Yeah. That's like quite different to what we learned.
Yeah.
Like one of my friends, she was quite emotional because I say that in the book of the first page, it says Māori discovered Aotearoa, Moriori discovered the Kohi Chatham Islands. And she was like, oh, I haven't seen that written down in a book before. I'm just so glad that it's in there.
So good.
Because that's not what we learned.
I've been on a tour in Hawaii, and a local, Hawaiian was telling us about the history about Captain Cook. He said, yeah, we killed him. And then he started laughing. And it's just so different to what we heard. They did not like him there at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, we leave that in or not. It's an interesting story. But so you're actually, you've got a case at the moment with the Te Aka Whai order, the abolishing Te Aka Whai order. How's that all going? Yeah,
so we're waiting for a decision from the Waitangi Tribunal. My clients, Lady Tiriti Moxon and Janice Cooker, they were part of the claimants that brought the case that led to Te Aka Whai order being stood up. And that was cool. We won that case and Te Aka Whai order was stood up. And then it was disestablished, so they have brought a case to the Waitangi Tribunal saying that shouldn't have happened. That was a breach of Te Tiriti. It was just getting started and it was doing some amazing things. So we're just waiting for a decision on that.
So if you win that case, they'll re-establish it?
That would be good, but actually it requires political will for it to be re-established. And actually the clients, they've said, we want more than Te Aka Whai order now. Basically, it was proof of concept that we can do it, and we want something this time, he whare hau, a new house that we design, that we control, and that we can use to care for our people and help them heal from, what they've, the struggle that they're living now that comes from our history.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think education and letting people know, like you're doing with this podcast, the more people that understand the facts, it's harder for people to sort of spin them a line like that Te Aka Whai order was special treatment.
Yeah.
If people are educated and knew that Te Aka Whai order had a tiny, tiny portion of the health budget, a tiny, tiny team of people that are employed compared to Te Whatu order. But that information didn't make it out there, so it was able to be presented as special treatment for Māori and we should get rid of it. So, yeah, it's, what you're doing with this podcast and what I'm trying to do with education is just so important so that people are making good decisions.
Yeah. What would be your advice to people out there watching it like that have absolutely no understanding, but they want to have more of understanding around it so they can make better decisions? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'd love them to come and I'd love for them to come along to a library talk. I've been in lots of libraries around Aotearoa. Don't be frightened, you can learn. Don't need to go to university and get a PhD to know the basics. I think people have been told that it's really complex. The little book that I wrote is 30 pages. You can read that in an hour and a half and go from, what we learnt at school, which was really nothing and the wrong information, to really understanding the basics enough to look at what's happening in the news, what politicians are saying, what journalists are saying, what people are saying at a barbecue, and go, I'm not sure if that's actually accurate. I don't think that's right. You can just feel, don't be frightened to learn a bit, I would say to them.
Yeah, I can't wait to read those books because then it just gives you the confidence to speak up.
Yeah, and I have had exactly. And it's really hard to speak up at a barbecue or, in a cafe when you hear something.
Yeah.
But I've had people say to me that feeling knowledgeable, makes them feel safer. And even to just say, some of them have used the little book and said, "Oh, I heard about this book. Here, do you want to have a look at it?" Or I saw this lady at a library talk. You should really look it up. Because there's a lot of misinformation swirling around.
Where can people find these books? How can people get a hold of you?
We've been really lucky that heaps of independent bookshops have our book in it. So
Anywhere good books are sold. Right?
Exactly. But we also sell them on our website, which is waiakorbooks.com. So Waiako comes from W-A-I-A-K-O. Waiako means learning songs, because originally I started my education work with schools. I wrote learning songs for them to learn the basics of te reo. And so that's turned into Waiako Books as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you say? I mean, we work with a lot of, a lot of youth, a lot of tamariki, that are they come from tough situations, and we always try to just give them a glimpse into what life can be like, and to let them know, hey, it's possible for you. This stuff is possible, and we're here to support you, to help you to reach it. What would you say to young Māori that thinking, man, they see where you're at, and think, but they think it's impossible, that they're stuck where they are?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember feeling like that, even though my parents had worked very hard, that I had pretty comfortable upbringing. But it's, I went and spoke at the Māori and Pacifica prize giving at my old high school, Lombe College, at the end of last year, and I said to them that I remember when I was at school, they had someone come to the prize giving, and it seemed like that she had done so much. They listed all these things that she'd done, and I just felt like such a loser. I was 17, I was like, I can never do all of that. And now I'm about the age that she was, and I just realised I'm just old. So, of course, if you're only 17... so if you're 16, I'm 46. You got 30 years to, if you think that I'm doing okay, you like my jacket or whatever, you got 30 years.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time. Nobody, and also I said to them at the prize giving, no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. The people who are making big decisions, spending lots of money, they don't really know what they're doing. So you can do it too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, man. That's so true. Sometimes you see people who think they got everything together, but you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no one knows, because you're just giving it a go.
Yeah.
And so, anyone can give it a go.
What got you through because I imagine you went through some tough times, go through law school, climbing your way. What got you through the tough times?
I mean, I had whānau support, so I was living with my whānau, and I knew that, that it felt like I was at law school forever. And I remember saying to Dad, "Oh my gosh, it's taking so long. Like, I feel like I'm never going to get there." And he always supported me and said, "Who should support you but us? We're your whānau." And over time, I've gone back more to the whānau support.
Yeah.
So I've actually gone back to that home where I grew up. My mum lives in a new house next door. We moved in. I've got my husband and my children there, and my niece moved in while she did her masters.
Yeah.
My cousin lives downstairs and has an art studio in our garage. And I just think, I feel like that's the secret.
Yeah.
You need your whānau.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's what we try and say to people. When people don't have that support, it's very, very hard, What's last question I ask everyone that comes on?
Yes.
What's your why? What keeps you going, in this mahi that you're doing now and life in general?
Do lots of people say their kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Yeah. It just makes everything clearer when I think about I'm trying to make it a bit of a friendlier world for them.
Yeah.
So if I can, if I can try and educate as many people so that they're going to have, that life's going to be a bit better for them and their friends and their cousins. Yeah, I feel that is why I do it.
Oh, and I love it. Keep it up, sis. And if I can share anything, if you ever need me to share, say something that people can't say, I'll say it. You can send it to me.
Okay.
I'll say it.
Yeah.
Anything controversial, send it my way, and I'll say it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. If you made it this far, thank you so much for the support. It really does mean so much to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and comment on our videos, and share this out. These stories are so inspiring, and they need to be heard by everyone. Thank you so much, team.